The college football wheel of time turns, and dynasties come and pass, leaving memories that become legend. Legend fades to myth, and even myth is long forgotten when the age that gave it birth comes again. In one year, called 1992 by some, a year yet to come, a year long past, a plan rose in the South, East, and Midwest. The plan was not the beginning. There are neither beginnings nor endings to the turning of the college football wheel of time. But it was a beginning. This is that beginning. So gather around as we discuss the secret history of college football. This is the story of the Bowl Coalition Playoff. The following program is presented by PSPN. We are always standing by. Welcome to the 1992 Bowl Coalition Playoff Selection Show. I'm your host, Porkins, and over the course of the program, we will be revealing the 8 teams that have been selected to compete in the inaugural Bowl Coalition Playoff. Before we get into breaking down the games, let's take a minute to review how we arrived at this momentous occasion. With the 1990 and 1991 seasons resulting in split national championships, Colorado and Georgia Tech in 1990, and Miami and Washington in 1991, there was a renewed effort in devising a system that would force a true national championship game. The 7 major conferences, the ACC, the Big East, the Big 8, the Big 10, the Pac-10, the SEC, and the Southwest Conference, along with Notre Dame, and representatives from the major bowls convened in what has now become known as the Birmingham Convention. The representatives met for 3 days trying to hash out the best way to achieve a unanimous national champion. As the convention got underway, 2 factions began to form. The traditionalists, spearheaded by Big Ten Commissioner Jim Delaney, and the championshipists, led by SEC Commissioner Roy Kramer. The Big Ten and its top partner, the Rose Bowl, argued that this would be a move away from amateurism and would tarnish the traditional matchups. As the conference would continue, the SEC was able to bring the majority of the coalition to their side, and a myriad of systems were discussed. In a final vote, with an 11-2 majority, the championshipists prevailed and the creation of an 8-team playoff was commissioned. The proposed format would involve the conference champions from all 7 conferences, along with Notre Dame, competing to decide the national championship. This format was short-lived, though, as the Rose Bowl and the Big Ten, the 2 dissenting votes, both refused to participate, and the Rose Bowl went so far as refusing to release the Pac-10 from its contractual obligations to send its champion to the Rose Bowl. The newly formed Bowl Coalition would not be deterred, as they would continue on with their plans to host an 8-team tournament. With the Big Ten and the Pac-10 champions off the table, it was decided that 2 at-large bids would be brought in from the runners-up of the member conferences, or the third-place team in the case of the SEC, whose second-place team was being held hostage by the Big Ten in the Citrus Bowl game. With the format set, the details were then ironed out with the following set of rules. 5 conference champions and Notre Dame would receive automatic bids to the playoff. 2 at-large bids would be selected from the participating conference runners-up. The Bowl Coalition Committee, composed of representatives from the 4 bowls, the Orange, the Sugar, the Cotton, and the Fiesta, would determine the 2 at-large bids. Seeding would be determined by the AP poll. The first round would be held on December 19th at the 4 bowl sites. Pairing traditional conference affiliations with the bowls would be attempted to the best of the coalition's ability. The semifinals would take place on January 1st at 2 of the 4 bowls, which will rotate yearly. This year, the Orange Bowl and the Cotton Bowl will host the semifinals, with the Sugar Bowl and the Fiesta Bowl hosting next year. The championship game will be held at rotating sites, with the Dallas Cowboys and Texas Stadium hosting this year's championship in Irving, Texas. All right, now that everyone's up to speed, what's this? Yep, I have just gotten word that we have received the final playoff matchups from the committee, and we will break that down for you momentarily. But first, let's look at the 2 other major bowls that were announced last night, the Rose Bowl and the Citrus Bowl. This year's Rose Bowl game, hosted on January 1st, will be the Big Ten champs, the Michigan Wolverines, and the Pac-10 champs, the Washington Huskies. Let's look at how both teams got to this point. Michigan began the season ranked number 6 in the AP poll and were thrown to the fire right off the bat, traveling to South Bend to take on the number 3 ranked Notre Dame Fighting Irish.
Wolverines take the field. outside. But he's a good quarterback. But I felt Jim, other than the tackling, which I think would have been better. Here's a great example. Look at all these missed tackles. And this is a great run by Brooks. And Coleman Wallace come over and basically kind of not. Your kids don't get a chance to see themselves doing the blocking in a game, and it was just not what we wanted. And here Elvis just threw behind a little bit. We should have broke that up. I waited for the draws, and screens didn't work very well because they had great intention of stopping those. Tyrone Wheatley makes a great catch, shows his strength and speed here, picks up a great block by Derek Alexander, and goes in the end.
Second half, tied up 7-7. 3rd and 7.
Yeah,
they
Meyer
make a big play.
Gets the ball to Dawson on a good slant pass, and some of that was in coverage and things, but in many respects, we did a good job. Now, here we block a field goal. Nate hold right. We tried that in the first half, and it didn't work out. And here was a good moment for Pete Elzalovic, who was our field goal kick school as a high school player.
You open the fourth quarter and go for it all.
Right. Derek runs a good route here, and Elvis puts the ball out there where it's really easy for him to catch, and first down for them to keep a drive going, obviously. Then they come back under pressure on what I thought was a very fine play, particularly for a young freshman, but it's a good play here. Strips the guy after the ball hits his chest, and they get pass interference, put the ball on the 3.
And then Bettis goes in, and that makes it a 17-14 game, and a very, very difficult call by an official. Then you come back, and this is the last thing you want to see.
Right. We had a couple plays here, it didn't work, and a linebacker steps in front of Walter Smith there and picks off a pass.
Big play, because they are forced now to kick the field goal. They make it by Hentrick. It makes it a 17-17 game.
There, Jim, may be sore for a few days.
Then here's the pass you don't like to see.
The back should have been picked up on that. The blitzer from the corner, our back should have picked him up, and then we'd have had an easier time throwing that ball.
After the disappointing tie to open the year, the Wolverines would rattle off 6 straight blowout wins with an average score of 46-10. It was then, on October 31st, sitting at 6-0-1, Michigan would travel to West Lafayette to face the 3-4 Purdue Boilermakers.
Michigan and Purdue in the Big Ten. The Wolverines pushed to the limit by the Boilermakers on this day. Eric Hunter back to pass. Pressure. Rolls right. Finds Scott Green in the end zone. 17-7, the biggest halftime deficit for the Wolverines in almost 4 years. But back they came in the third quarter. Elvis Gerback to Tony McGee, the tight end, made it 17-14. Michigan ahead 24-17. Hunter, in desperation, is picked off by Pat Maloney. The Wolverines get a huge scare, but they hang on and win it 24-17.
Coming off the close win, the Wolverines would refocus and destroy Northwestern 40-7 before welcoming Illinois with a chance to clinch the Big Ten title.
Now, Illinois taking on Michigan today. The Fighting Illini with Jason Verduzco finding some offense, and the Wolverines in the Rose Bowl, but out of the national championship hunt. We're going to show you why. Craig?
Fourth quarter, it's a great call because the DBs are running into the end zone for coverage. He's got the option to run. He can run well.
Yeah, Verduzco gets it in. And then the field goal attempt. What's bizarre about this is on third down, Moeller chose not to let Elvis Gerback go to the end zone. He set up simply for the tie, 22-22, clinching the Rose Bowl and clinching the fact that Michigan will not have a chance for a national championship.
Even with the disappointing tie, Michigan still clinched the Big Ten title, and all that was left was to play their arch rival, the 17th-ranked Ohio State Buckeyes.
Michigan and Ohio State. In Columbus, the big ball game here. Michigan had already clinched the Rose Bowl. Ohio State, they're already clinched the Hall of Fame Bowl bid, but John Cooper, importance in this ball game with reports all week that he needs to beat Michigan or win the bowl to keep his job. Elvis Gerback on the keeper. Gets to the end zone, but nailed by Chico Nelson. Watch the replay here. Nelson's helmet goes right into Gerback's ribs. He would leave with a rib contusion, 7-3 Michigan. Fourth quarter, 13-6, fourth and goal at the 5. Cooper says go for it. Herb Street hits Greg Beatty, 13-all tie because they kicked the point. In the closing seconds, Ohio State didn't go for it, punted. Alexander fumbled, but the Buckeyes don't get a break. Michigan recovers. Michigan runs out the clock instead of throwing deep late in the game. 13-all is the tie. Michigan.
A truly disappointing finish to the regular season as Michigan limps into the Rose Bowl at 8-0-3. While they have not lost a game, those 3 ties will definitely weigh heavily on the Wolverines' national title aspirations. Washington also began the season highly ranked. As the defending co-champions, the Huskies were the clear pick to disrupt the newly formed playoff. After beginning the season 2-0, the Huskies' first real test came in the form of number 12 Nebraska.
Purchase.
for the Huskers. Napoleon Kaufman back in a single safety, and he's going to run it. And he will not have the first down. Caught with a necktie tackle
The
by
Husky
Walter.
D was stifling. Husker quarterback Mike Grant is hit hard in the end zone for a safety by Tommy Smith. Second quarter, trailing 9-0. The Huskers get back in the game as Calvin Jones turns upfield and rips off a 73-yard touchdown run. 9-7 Washington until later in the second. The Huskies answer as Billy Joe Hobart hits Joe Krolik for the 30-yard touchdown play. 23-7 Huskies. 29-14 was the final.
Win against Nebraska under their wing, the Huskies looked to Pac-10 play to cement their place as the best team in the country. To do this, they would need to face back-to-back top 25 opponents, number 20 USC and number 25 California.
Seattle, USC, and Washington. Rob Johnson, the pass picked off on the first play of the game by Shane Pahuka, and he takes it down to the 1-yard line, sets up the Billy Joe Hobart touchdown. Then the Trojans fumble on the next possession, sets up a Hobart pass to Joe Kralik with a nice over-the-shoulder catch. 14-zip, 6 minutes in. But Washington's offense shut down the rest of the way. Trojans a chance to win it, but Kyle Wachholz, the third stringer, his pass was picked off. USC outgained Washington, but they had 5 turnovers, and they also allowed 6 sacks, so not an...
In the Pac-10, top-ranked Washington looked to remain undefeated at the expense of Cal. Don James saying hello to his former offensive coordinator. Big game for Napoleon Kaufman. He explodes to the middle for a 37-yard touchdown run. The momentum really turned here. Cal down 14-7 in the third. Lindsey Chapman fields the kickoff in the end zone, fumbles it. Russell Harrison recovers for the touchdown. 21-7 Washington in the lead. They give the ball back to Kaufman. He gets some great blocking. Goes 14 yards for the scores. The Huskies with a strong performance. 35-16 the final. The Huskies extend their winning streak to 19 games.
These wins plus 2 more in the following weeks had Washington ranked number 1 in the country and playing host to the number 15 Stanford Cardinal. Stanford and first-year head coach Bill Walsh were seen as the one team that could bring down the Huskies.
Took on Stanford today at Husky Stadium, and they delivered an emphatic message. Napoleon Kaufman on the receiving end of this punt right here. It's 7-zip Stanford. First time the Huskies had trailed all year. Kaufman takes care of that. He puts Washington in position to score, takes the punt return down inside the 5-yard line with that great speed. They would score on a Brunell run. Brunell here scrambles, goes to the left, comes back to the near side of the field, and Leif Johnson breaks open in the end zone. Brunell finds him his second touchdown catch of the year. Washington led 21-7 on halftime. They rolled it up on the Cardinal, 41-7 to go to 8-0. They are at Arizona next week. Georgia.
No rest for the weary as Washington would need to hit the road to face number 12 Arizona the very next week. The Wildcats' defense has been stifling opponents, but the Huskies still remain the clear favorite as the top-ranked team in the country.
But this was a defensive war. Napoleon Kaufman on the special teams makes a mistake here. The Josh Miller punt, what a great job he did all day. Kaufman goes back, fumbles it. The ball kicked. Wildcats recover it. It's not a touchdown. You can't advance a muff, and that would be critical because on third down, George Malaulu rolls out, just drops the football. Washington recovers. Wildcats can't cash in. More trouble for Kaufman, meanwhile, in the second quarter. Mistakes, the order of the day in the first half. He coughs up the ball. Arizona recovers. It would set up a field goal. Steve McLaughlin makes it 3-0 Wildcats. Washington driving late first half. Brunell to Jason Shelley in the end zone. Right through his hands. More mistakes for the Huskies. Have had a lot of distractions this week. Then the field goal, the bad snap. The misfire. 3-0 Cats at halftime. In the second half, it's 6-3 Arizona. Mark Brunell fumbles the snap. Leads to another field goal, 9-3 Arizona. Then Brunell driving the Huskies. Intercepted by Keshawn Johnson on the big hit. That Wildcat aggressive defense forcing mistakes all day. The fans just couldn't wait to celebrate here. Malaulu on the keeper gets in the end zone, and then before time ran out, Arizona fans would storm the field. They ripped down the goalposts. It's sweet in Tucson after 2 lopsided losses to the Huskies, 16-3.
Huskies' long win streak has come to an end, and their hopes for a national title are looking like a long shot. Though with only 2 unranked opponents left, the Huskies were in good shape to finish strong. Defeating Oregon State was a cakewalk, but rivalry games are never easy as the Huskies travel to Pullman to finish the season.
Bowl hopes, and yeah, that's typical Palouse weather in November. Looks like the Iditarod. Supposed to be the Huskies that do well in the snow. Instead, it's the Cougars. Bledsoe to Philip Bobo, the sliding catch. Collides with C.J. Davis. 44-yard touchdown in the snow. Third quarter, Cougars up 21-7. Chambay right there, mushing through the snow. A la Susan Butcher for you Iditarod fans. Chambay's so excited, pounding on the frozen tundra. 42-23.
A tough way to end the season. Washington finishes as Pac-10 champs, but the 9-2 record is a tough pill to swallow on a season with such high hopes. And there is the Rose Bowl game. Number 9 Washington at 9-2 versus number 6 Michigan at 8-0-3. The other major bowl that has already been announced is the Citrus Bowl, where number 15 Ohio State will square off against number 8 Georgia. Let's see the biggest moments of each of their seasons. For Ohio State, outside of their tie with Michigan, you got to look back at their early season matchup with number 8 Syracuse.
To the Carrier Dome we go. Teams coming out of the chute in the rematch of the Hall of Fame Bowl. Kirk Herbstreit goes up top for Brian Stabline, and Stabline catches it between two Orange defenders for a 46-yard touchdown. 7-0 Buckeyes. Meanwhile, former Syracuse great Jim Brown hoping the Orange can get something going, and David Walker delivers. Starts left, goes right, spins away, and charges to the 1. He will fumble, but recovers to set up the Orange touchdown to cut it to 21-12. Fourth quarter now, Robert Smith goes around to the left end for an easy Buckeye touchdown, 28-12. Martin Graves, 4 interceptions for the Orangemen.
Georgia, on the other hand, was posed to go to the SEC Championship with a win on October 31st as they met with Florida in their annual rivalry game.
Georgia, Florida, the cocktail party, huge implications for the SEC East. Frank Harvey was the story, not Garrison Hurst for the Dogs on the ground today. Harvey breaks through the Gator defense, 80 yards to the end zone, 7-3 Dogs. Spurrier's offense effective through the air in the first half. Spurrier livid about his defense at that point, but they would play a much better ball game than a lot of us expected. Matthews to Willie Jackson for a touchdown, 23-17 Gators at halftime. It's 26-17 before Eric Zier rallied the Dogs on a 3-play drive. Brian Bohannon, the nice diving catch. It's 26-24. But on 3rd and 13, the Gators trying to play keep away and run out the clock. Matthews finds Harrison Houston. They held onto the ball. They preserved the victory. They've won 3 straight over Georgia, the first time in the series since 1961.
And there you have it, number 8 Georgia at 9-2 versus number 15 Ohio State at 8-2-1 in the Citrus Bowl. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for. Let's introduce the 1992 Bowl Coalition Playoff, starting off with the number 1 seed, the Miami Hurricanes. Miami, the defending national champions, opened the season traveling to the number 23 Iowa Hawkeyes.
At Iowa, Dennis Erickson trying to bring home win number 19 in a row for the Canes. And on defense, Rusty Medeiros blowing in and stuffing Jim Hartley, who was harassed all night. Miami up 3-0. Tino Toretta to Kevin Williams. Nice move, and then falls into the end zone for the touchdown. 10-0 Miami. It was 17-7 in the fourth quarter. Toretta to Darrell Spencer. Another nice move for the touchdown, and the Canes win it, although they struggled for a while in the first half. 530 yards in total offense. Toretta.
Add in a blowout win against Florida A&M and a close victory over Arizona, Miami was all set to host number 3 Florida State for what was being looked at as the game of the year.
The big ball game of the day in the Orange Bowl, and speaking of critical mistakes, there's been a history of those made by the Seminoles in this series in recent years. Dennis Erickson off the bus with his arms flailing at the Orange Bowl. An unbelievable show of emotion right there. But the Seminoles would seize momentum instantly. The opening kickoff, Tamarick Vanover, the freshman, gets around the corner and the picket fence is set up. He got inside the contained man right there. 94 yards to the touchdown. Very much like prime time. The Seminoles up 7-0. Defenses would dominate. The mistakes would continue in the first half. It was 10-10 at halftime. Great day for Kevin Patrick. Filling in for Rusty Medeiros. Hauls down Charlie Ward down deep. In the fourth quarter, Michael Barrow, one of the 3 quick linebackers on Miami, will deliver the big hit on Vanover. A little payback for the opening kickoff right there. 16-10 State, Lee, when Toretta scrambles.
Well, they made a mistake. They did a twist to the inside. He had enough presence to go outside. Big run by Toretta.
It was because a couple of plays later, Toretta finds Lamar Thomas, who catches the ball, beats single coverage right there. Then the mistake of the day, or one of them anyway. Florida State, Corey Sawyer goes back, for some reason fields the punt, then for some reason tries to throw it underhanded out of the end zone. That's a penalty. Forget about the touchdown signal right here. This is a safety because you can't forward lateral out of the end zone, and that creates a 2-point safety for Miami. Bobby Bowden cannot believe the kind of mistakes his team makes when they take on the Hurricanes. But the final drive, and Charlie Ward has him going. Kes McCorvey the catch. And then Ward shows his mobility. You expect this from Ward. In the final minute, he gets the ball across midfield. Knowles down by 3. A chance to win it or drive for a tying field goal. And look at the great catch by Matt Fryer. Lays out, sets him up at the 25. They had one play after that, and then Dan Mowry came in. Familiar situation, left hash mark, and he pushes it to the right. This one not quite as close as last year's. The frustration, he missed 3 field goals on the day, 19-16.
No time to sit on their laurels, as they would have to head to Happy Valley to face the Penn State squad ranked number 7th in the country.
Joe Paterno's Nittany Lions waited to claim victory and a spot higher in the national rankings. Late third quarter, Penn State trailing 10-7. John Saka drops back to pass under pressure. A bad pass throws his first INT of the season. Darren Crine goes 28 yards for the touchdown. Miami led 17-7. Fourth quarter, Penn State up 4th and 1. Richie Anderson stuffed by Michael Barrow, one of his 13 tackles. Penn State got the ball back. Saka hits O.J. McDuffie. Fabulous catch. 14-yard score. Lions trailed 17-14. That was as close as they got. Late fourth quarter, Lions deep in their own end zone. Saka's desperation pass picked off by Miami's Paul White. Saka wonders what might have been. Miami wins 17-14.
Having made it through this tough stretch unbeaten, the Hurricanes would rattle off 4 more wins and would sit at 9-0 as they traveled to face number 8 Syracuse for the Big East title.
This was a terrific game. Miami taking control in the early going, but the Syracuse defense hanging tough, forcing the Hurricanes to kick field goals instead of blowing it out. It would be a tremendous finish. Let's show you what happened. Chiretta, trouble early in the ball game. His Heisman campaign didn't really get off the ground today. Intercepted by Dan Conley at the goal line. 3 picks for Chiretta in the first half. It's 3-zip Canes in the second quarter. Larry Jones on an audible by Chiretta bursts up the middle, touchdown, 10-zip Hurricanes. Miami defense, meanwhile, dominating Syracuse. Marvin Graves sacked 7 times. And then Kevin Patrick storms in. Syracuse, -1 yards for Pasqualoni in the first half. Third quarter, 16-3. Back comes the Cuse. The missile on the rebound makes the catch. Rock and his brother cheering on the sidelines. Syracuse up the middle. They hurt Miami with trap plays. Marcus Lee barrels down to the 1. Watch the replay here. Michael Barrow influenced. He followed the fake of the halfback. Wasn't there in the middle. Lee gets it down close. Then Marvin Graves running down the sidelines, trying to give Syracuse the lead on a potential touchdown drive. Fourth quarter driving again. Graves, the option. And then he's hit after that. Darren Smith comes up with a hit. Rohan Marley grabs the loose ball. Miami holds. One final chance. No time on 4th down. Over the middle, Chris Gedney makes the catch, but he had to get into the end zone. He was hit. Heartbreaker for Marvin Graves. Syracuse comes up 3 yards short in the upset bid, and Miami hangs on, retains the number 1 ranking, and 1 step away.
A blowout win against San Diego State was all they needed to finish the regular season undefeated and become the number 1 ranked squad in the first ever Bowl Coalition playoff. Now, who will the Hurricanes face? The number 8 seed will go to the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Nebraska entered the season ranked 11th in the country and proceeded to blow out their first 2 opponents. They were feeling very confident heading into their matchup with defending champ Washington before being defeated thoroughly by the Huskies. A renewed focus and a QB change served the Huskers well as they reached all the way to number 8 in the country before their Big 8 showdown with number 8 Colorado.
Load on a top 10 team for a long time, and they got it today. Coy Detmer, the true freshman, gets the start in the rain. Very early problems for him. It's picked off right there by Travis Hill. Sets up a Husker touchdown. Then Calvin Jones with the jaunt here. Part of that IVAC tandem for the Huskers. 47 yards out. 14-0 Nebraska. They just kept on rolling. 31-7. The first back through. The big fullback, Lance Lewis. Forget about it. That made it 38-7. For Colorado fans, visions of the mid-'80s in the powder blue uniforms, and the Husker fans, long awaited.
The beatdown would need to be followed up as they would play host to number 13 Kansas 1 week later.
Feelings about that this season. Glenn Mason, and what a job he has done down in Lawrence. 21-30-1, but that's not the whole story. They're 7-1 this year. Jones. He's got a man wide open downfield. Gerald Armstrong, touchdown Nebraska. Take him out as hot as he is. 108 yards and 10 carries in that opening quarter for him. In the end zone, touchdown Gerald Armstrong. The we-back team. The throw got a man wide open. Touchdown, Corey Dixon. 46 yards in his share. Hillary going to go long, has a man wide open at the 20, it's bang, and inside the 10. Douglas will score. Do it. Will score. Getting back to the line of scrimmage, and Tom Osborne will continue his perfect mark against the Jayhawks of Kansas with a huge win tonight, 40.
Back-to-back beatdowns of their biggest Big 8 competition has emboldened the Huskers as they travel to lowly Iowa State in hopes of clinching a Big 8 title.
State had lost by a combined average of 43-9. Tommy Frazier having a typical Tommy Frazier early game, scrambling around and passing to Lance Lewis, a 15-yard strike. That made it 10-6 Huskers. Third quarter at 17-10 Iowa State. Marv Seiler, that's right, a third-string quarterback coming around the right end. He'll take it all the way down to the 2-yard line, and then they get the touchdown, move ahead by a score of 19-10. He had never played before, and the Iowa State fans tear down the goalpost and break the 14-game losing streak to Nebraska.
The upset of the year to be sure, but Nebraska would hold steady and easily defeat Oklahoma and Kansas State to claim the Big 8 title with a record of 9-2. These two will meet in the Orange Bowl on December 19th at 11 a.m. Eastern. It's gonna be an early one, folks, but this is going to be a full day of football, and to get it all in so you can catch every minute of the action, we have to start early. And oh my, what a way to start off this whole playoff with a rematch of last year's Orange Bowl, in which Miami embarrassed the Cornhuskers to the tune of 22-0. Miami is sure to be a sizable favorite, but don't count out Nebraska. Let's move on to the 4 versus 5 matchup. The number 4 seed will be the Texas A&M Aggies. Texas A&M entered the season as a top 10 team and had to prove their worth right away as they participated in the Pigskin Classic in Anaheim, California versus the 17th-ranked Stanford Cardinal.
The Aggies kicked off their ambitious 12-game schedule in Anaheim, California, where the team would meet the Stanford Cardinal in Bill Walsh's return to college football. After several days of pre-game activities, the Aggies showed a national television audience that they were ready to play. The first game of the season was a contest that turned into a two-way defensive struggle. A&M fell behind early in the second quarter, following a 5-yard scoring run by Stanford's J.J. Lashley. After 3 scoreless quarters, the Aggie offense finally got on track, driving 43 yards to the Stanford 21-yard line to set up A&M's first score. Quarterback Jeff Granger found tight end Greg Shorp in the end zone for the Aggies' only touchdown. With 4:27 left on the clock, place kicker Terry Venetoulias hit a 39-yard field goal to clinch a 10-7 victory for A&M.
Similar to this game, Texas A&M would face week after week of close games, but would continue to win, sitting at 4-0 when they faced another close matchup versus Texas Tech.
Similar finish down in College Station. Wasn't supposed to be this close. Texas A&M and Texas Tech. Tech up 17-16. But A&M would rally. Jeff Granger on the final drive shakes off Dusty Beavers and completes it.
Boy, I tell you what, this year, now Jeff Granger, if he can continue to do this is what Bucky Richardson gave A&M last year. He's got to do things like that to keep drives going.
At the 4-yard line, though, Granger makes a mistake. Could have been picked off by Marcus Coleman. It's not, and that would set up Terry Venetoulias, a chance to win it with a field goal gets it in there, and A&M and the Cotton Bowl breathed a big sigh of relief, 19-17.
Gaining confidence, Texas A&M finally was able to put together a complete game blowing out Rice. But once again, 1 week later, they found themselves in another tight matchup with unranked Baylor.
A fired-up Baylor squad was looking to spoil the Aggies' unblemished record, but A&M would not be denied. A&M took an early lead on this Rodney Thomas 84-yard scoring sprint, the longest TD run by the Aggies in 5 years. But Baylor responded with 13 unanswered points. A&M regained the lead on Greg Hill's 40-yard scoring burst and extended the margin on a Venetoulias field goal with 6:25 left to play. Baylor took a late safety in an effort to gain field position, providing the final 19-13 margin. The day belonged to the Aggie defense. On 2 occasions, the Aggies were backed up to their own 1-yard line, and each time the defense denied Baylor any points.
At this point, Texas A&M seemed to put it all together as they would win their next 4 by an average of 23 points. Sitting at 11-0, they would travel to Austin to face arch-rival Texas with a chance to finish undefeated and untied for the first time since 1939.
Looking at closing out a perfect 12-0 regular season, one of 3 unbeatens, yet 4th-ranked A&M guaranteed the Cotton Bowl, but needing to win at arch-rival Texas to have a shot, albeit fleeting, at the national title. This is a game of great tradition, a great rivalry. R.C. Slocum trying to get undefeated. Big media turnout for the big game in Texas. Second quarter, Horns up 3-0. The Aggies go on a ground onslaught. Sophomore Greg Hill, big gain as he cut back across the grain. Hill again. The Aggies averaged over 9 yards a carry on this drive, a drive that set up the other sophomore. Rodney Thomas up the middle, touchdown, 7-3 Aggies. Late second quarter, the next series, it's a reverse to Thomas, who goes in untouched, 14-3 at the break against John Makovic's team. But they'd get a big kickoff return to start the second half. Then a little razzle-dazzle. Peter Gardere to Derek Duke, back to the quarterback, Gardere. He will take a big hit, but he will get in the end zone for a Texas touchdown. 14-10, it's a close game, but in the fourth quarter, down 13. The pass intercepted by Aaron Glenn, who's got a convoy of Aggies to the end zone. The Aggies had 5 sacks in this game. And this, the 3rd longest interception return in school history, 95 yards, styling to close out a perfect season. They want a shot at number 1. They deserve it. They might not.
Finishing the season 12-0 for the first time in school history, Southwest Conference champion Texas A&M should be a team to watch. Their weak schedule and numerous close wins surely hurt their ranking, but you can't deny they deserve this spot and a chance to win it all. With the inclusion of Texas A&M, the Southwest Conference champion, this matchup will be hosted by the Cotton Bowl. And who will be traveling to Dallas to face the Aggies in their home state? The 5 seed, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Notre Dame had the strange distinction as the only team to start the season with a guaranteed spot in the Bowl Coalition playoff. Questions abound on how they would approach the season, and after their Week 2 tie against Michigan, in which Notre Dame seemingly did not attempt to push the envelope and played for the tie, these questions intensified. Sitting at 3-0-1, Notre Dame welcomed Stanford to Notre Dame Stadium for a top 25 matchup.
Stanford and Notre Dame in South Bend. Much anticipated coaching matchup, but this one was decided on the field. But mistakes like this, Jerome Bettis coughs up the football. John Lynch on the strip. Stanford stormed from behind. Can you believe 33 unanswered points? Stenstrom to J.J. Lasley. Notre Dame trying to come back here, but Rick Meyer. This is not the kind of mistake that a senior quarterback, a Heisman candidate, should make. The interception by Lynch right there seals the victory. Bill Walsh and Holtz congratulating each other. Walsh very, very emotional after the game. Says it was as big a win as any in his career, and that includes 3 Super Bowls.
Notre Dame's effort and attitude a national topic of discussion, the Irish seemed to buckle down and get down to business, completing 3 straight blowout victories before hosting Boston College in a top 10 matchup.
College and Notre Dame. Lou Holtz and Tom Coughlin meeting in the only 2 Catholic schools still playing 1A football. Scoreless game, but Notre Dame's first possession. Rick Meyer to lead Becton on the play action. 7-zip.
Watch this play. Leap back to number 4 will go at the outside linebacker like he's going to block him, but then he slips into the flat and is wide open for a touchdown. A nice play because it was a man who was supposed to cover him.
And more play actually on the Irish second possession. Swinging out of the backfield, Jerome Bettis takes it. Nice moves in the secondary. 37-yard touchdown makes it 14-0. It's 28-0. They scored in the first 4 possessions. And then Reggie Brooks, just trying to run out the clock, goes 73 yards on 3rd and 20. The BC lads play tough, but a little bit outmanned by the Irish today. And so after halftime, Georgia Tech comes out to play the second half. Now, just kidding. They were shooting a movie today, a true life story set back in 75. And there's the Panaflex cameras capturing it 54-7.
Riding high and silencing the doubters, Notre Dame prepared to host Penn State in a second straight top 25 matchup.
While the Nittany Lions try to drop the Irish. And it's a defensive battle into the 4th quarter, tied 9-9 until Penn State's Brian O'Neill busts one 13 yards and the Lions go ahead 16-9. And it stays that way until just 25 seconds remain in the game. Notre Dame facing a 4th and goal and going for one last gasp. Rick Meyer finding Jerome Bettis, the touchdown, pulling the Irish within 16-15. So kick the point after and tie or go for 2 in the win. That decision a no-brainer. They go for 2 and watch what happens. The entire game on the line as Meyer scrambles and lets one go for Reggie Brooks, who makes the fingertip grab, and Notre Dame pulls off the last-second dramatics, beating Penn State 17-16.
Sitting at 8-1-1, all Notre Dame had left as a tune-up for the playoff was a trip to Southern California to play the USC Trojans.
Now for a taste of what happened on the college gridiron on Saturday. Notre Dame and USC second quarter. Reggie Brooks through the middle, 55 yards for the score. He had a career-high 227 yards and 3 touchdowns. Trojans down by 8 late in the game. Rob Johnson, he's picked off by Tom Carter. Irish win their 10th straight against Southern Cal.
Finishing the season at 9-1-1 was enough to earn the 5 seed and a trip to the Cotton Bowl on December 19th at 6 p.m. Eastern. A rematch of the 1988 Cotton Bowl in which A&M beat the Irish 35-10. This will be only the second meeting of the two teams. By all accounts, we expect a well-fought battle with all eyes on whether the stifling A&M defense can slow down the power run game of Reggie Brooks and Jerome Bettis. Let's move down and look at the bottom half of the bracket and find out who will be playing in the 2 remaining bowls, the Fiesta and the Sugar Bowl. The number 3 seed, an ACC champion, the Florida State Seminoles. Florida State, in their first season in the ACC, were thrown to the wolves right away. After an easy win to start the season, the Seminoles hit the road for 2 straight away games against top 25 ACC opponents.
Tigers looking to rock and roll over FSU. Quarterback Charlie Ward had other ideas. Ward looking for somebody and finds Matt Fryer for the 11-yard touchdown pass. Florida State leads 17-13 at the end of 3. Tigers come back, though, on a 3rd and 5. Richard Moncrief finds Terry Smith, who out-jumps and then runs past Corey Sawyer for the 35-yard touchdown. Clemson out in front 20-17. 2 minutes left. Charlie Ward looking for somebody, drops back and finds Kevin Knox for the winning touchdown. Florida State comes through on the road 24-20. Ward leads the Seminoles to the victory despite throwing 4 interceptions for the second straight.
Death Valley Challenge last weekend put their undefeated record on the line against North Carolina State. Bobby Bowden talking things over with his quarterback Charlie Ward. Charlie Ward, the quick drop step in the second quarter. He lofts it up for Tamarick Vanover, who runs under it and runs out through the secondary for a 60-yard scoring strike, 7-3 Noles. Nearing the end of the first half, Charlie Ward to Shannon Baker, a nice pass and catch, a 32-yard touchdown, Noles 14-3 at halftime. Third quarter now, Ward goes up top again, airing out a 44-yard scoring strike to Shannon Baker one more time. 34-13 FSU. The Seminoles go to 3-0 late in the second quarter. They had just 30 yards in total offense.
After another ACC win the following week versus Wake Forest, Florida State had started 4-0 and was the class of the ACC. They took a devastating last-second loss to Miami before jumping right back into ACC play. An easy win versus North Carolina was followed by another top 25 ACC road game.
6th-ranked Florida State. Marvin Jones down and out as the Seminoles are down 21-7 in the 4th. The Noles come back. That is Charlie Ward from 15 yards out. 24-20 Tech. That same score, 4th and 5. Ward, it's Kes McCovery. He eludes a tackler, gets in the end zone. Seminoles win 29-24.
They then face Virginia for their fourth top 25 road ACC matchup of the season, coming away with a 13-3 victory. Florida State would win 2 more to enter their final game of the season against arch rival, the 6th-ranked Florida Gators.
Straight against Southern Cal. Florida and Florida State. Charlie Ward's pass is tipped, then caught in the end zone by Tamarick Vanover, a 7-yard score. Vanover, he had a great game. He takes the kickoff. He gets loose. 80-yard return before being tripped up. He also had a 76-yard return later. Noles win big.
10-1 ACC champion, and their only loss being a 3-point loss to number 1 Miami. You gotta think Florida State is poised to be a true contender in this inaugural playoff. Florida State's opponent, the number 6 seed, will be our first at-large bid of the playoff. Let's do a quick look at the eligible teams. The ACC runner-up, NC State. The Big East runner-up, Syracuse. The Big 8 runner-up, Colorado. Pac-10 runner-up, Stanford. The SEC third-place team, Florida. Southwest Conference runner-up, Baylor. The first of the 2 at-large bids will go to the 6th-seeded Syracuse Orangemen. Syracuse began the season ranked number 10 in the country and was seen as the top competitor to Miami in the Big East. After an easy win in Week 1, Syracuse would face their first big test, hosting the Texas Longhorns.
Quarter, 21-19 Texas. The Orange had just gotten the touchdown. They're going for 2. Marvin Graves, the quarterback, on the receiving end, and gets a 21-all tie. Worth another look. Graves, afterwards, there was a celebration at the stadium. The student section collapsed on him. He was out for 5 minutes, but was okay. Came back in the game to air it out here to Kadri Ismail. A diving grab on the other end, 58-yard touchdown pass, and Syracuse pulls away to win by 10. Ismail caught 4 passes, 85 yards. Graves threw for Purdue.
A week later, Syracuse would lay an egg against Ohio State, but would rally and would head down to Morgantown to face West Virginia in a top 25 Big East matchup. Syracuse would eke out a controversial 20-17 victory, where West Virginia coach Don Nalen had this to say afterwards.
Coached a long time, but I don't think I've ever had one taken from me like that before. It's a crime. Twice on 4th down, I guarantee you that the interference call came so late, plus the ball, it was an uncatchable football. It wasn't even close. And it's just a crime. The fight that broke out, that's just a disaster. Their guy takes the ball and smashes our guys, and we lose 3. The guy that starts the fight keeps playing.
Regardless of the controversial finish, Syracuse had really hit its stride. They won their next 3 games, all against Big East opponents, with an average score of 36-9. Having risen back to the top 10, they would travel to Boston College with a chance to set up a winner-take-all matchup with Miami 1 week later. They left Boston with a 27-10 victory, only to go on to lose in a heartbreaker to Miami the following week, to finish the season 9-2. Ranked 6th in the AP poll, the Orangemen found their stride down the stretch and should be a tough out in the Bull Coalition playoff. Wow, what a matchup. Marvin Graves and Charlie Ward going head-to-head out in the desert. The Fiesta Bowl, played on December 19th at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, will feature the only 2 teams that gave Miami trouble this season. Should be a high-scoring, exciting, late-night thriller. The final matchup of the first round will take place in the Sugar Bowl on December 19th at 2:30 p.m. Eastern. The second-seeded team and one of the favorites of the playoff is the Alabama Crimson Tide. The Crimson Tide had a very favorable early schedule, and though they weathered some offensive production issues, their defense was more than sufficient to carry the growing offense to a 6-0 record, with the offense really coming to life in the last 2 games, scoring 48 and 37 points respectively. With the first half of the season out of the way, the 3rd Saturday in October was upon us. The 4th-ranked Crimson Tide would travel to the 17th-ranked Tennessee Volunteers for Alabama's biggest test on the season.
Bama and Tennessee, a big day for Derek Lassick. He takes the pitch, fakes the reverse to David Palmer, and keeps it for 16 yards. That set up this 1-yard touchdown plunge by Lassick. Bama wins by a final of 17-10.
With 2 more easy wins versus Ole Miss and LSU out of the way, the Crimson Tide would hit the road once again to play number 16 Mississippi State.
Alabama at Mississippi State, the Tide leading 7-0 early when Antonio Langhorne comes charging through to block the punt and score the touchdown. Bama goes up 14-0 and leads 20-3 at the half before Mississippi State comes charging back in the 3rd. And watch this catch by Olanda Truitt. Incredible concentration, part of a rather incredible comeback as Mississippi State actually goes on to grab the lead 21-20 before a Bama field goal has the Tide in front 23-21. When George Teague makes the interception that leads to the clinching touchdown, Alabama has now won 20 in a row and clinches the SEC West, beating Mississippi State 30-21.
With only one game left, the Iron Bowl was the only thing that stood between Alabama and a perfect regular season.
This one in Birmingham, and Pat Dye, 99 career wins at Auburn, but this would be it. Players showing their respect and playing with a purpose, especially on defense. Derek Lassick trying the right side, finding nothing, and the defense of Auburn knocks him back for a 16-yard loss. David Palmer gets nailed by James Willis, and that deserves an owl. Scoreless game at halftime. Third quarter, Stan White's pass tipped, then intercepted by Antonio Langham. Auburn was going for a score. It's going the other way. Alabama with a 7-0 lead. They do it with defense. Fourth quarter, some offense. Sherman Williams, the handoff, makes a move to the right and then dives toward the end zone for the 15-yard touchdown run, a 17-0 advantage. Looks like he's walking in an earthquake. And then more defense from Alabama. Reed McMillan swarming the middle, and Stan White getting nailed on the end of this by John Copeland. As Gene Stallings and Alabama win, saying so long to Pat Dye, 17-0 the final stand.
An 11-1 season was not the end for Alabama, as they would take a short trip to Birmingham to face the 12th-ranked Florida Gators in the inaugural SEC championship game, with the winner guaranteed a spot in the Bowl Coalition playoff. The pressure was on for Alabama, as a loss would almost certainly send them to the Citrus Bowl, and they would miss out on a chance to bring in their first national championship since 1979, when Bear Bryant roamed the sidelines.
Matthews gives it off to Rhett. Touchdown, Florida. Second down and 3 from the Gator 5. Here goes Lassick. Touchdown. The Tide is answered. Second down and 12. Pass to the end zone. Touchdown, Alabama. Curtis Brown. Alabama 14 and Florida 7. Chris Anderson settles into the backfield now with Martin Houston for Alabama as they take over up on the 35-yard line. And Parker wants to go deep for Palmer. And he caught it. The little man makes things happen. First down snap, back to Lassick. Good blocking on the corner. Touchdown, Alabama. It worked today. Wow. Into the end zone. Touchdown, Florida. Willie Jackson. Pressure runs him out of there. Antonio London after him. Pass is caught. Willie Jackson at the 2-yard line. Rhett. Touchdown. 21-21 tie with 8:09 to play in. First, let's settle this one, and that's a cracking good one as Matthews goes back and throws. Intercepted by Langham. He's on his way. Touchdown, Alabama. Southeastern Conference Championship game by a score of 28-21.
Sitting at 12-0, Alabama should be a force with their power run game and dominating defense. They will be facing off against the second at-large bid of this tournament. The 7th seed has been awarded to the Colorado Buffaloes. Colorado, the 1990 national champions, coming off 3 straight Big 8 championships and just 3 years removed from an astounding 371 rushing yards per game, totally revamped their offense in the offseason and came out with a high-flying aerial attack. This change paid off as the Buffaloes averaged 47 points in their first 2 wins. With the new offensive attack centered around a very young core, their youth was bound to get the better of them. And a trip to Minnesota in Week 3 would prove to be the first of such times.
And to Minneapolis for Colorado and Minnesota. Ty Detmer's little brother Coy, 24 yards to Charles Johnson for the score. Now 17 seconds left. That's Aaron Pipcorn trying a 55-yarder to win it for Minnesota, but no, it goes wide right. The Gophers, huge underdogs, almost pull it off. 21-20 was the final score.
With a full-blown quarterback controversy between Cordell Stewart and Coy Detmer, Colorado would go on to win easily against Iowa and struggle through a 6-0 victory over Missouri before welcoming Oklahoma in a huge Big 8 matchup.
The Buffaloes had won their last 3 meetings with the Sooners. Fourth quarter, 17-7 Oklahoma. Quarterback Coy Detmer throws deep to Charles Johnson down the right sideline. A 92-yard touchdown pass, longest in Colorado history. The Buffaloes down by just 3 now. This time, Detmer looks over the middle, and he is picked off by Darius Johnson. He returns at 17 yards. Oklahoma up by 10 again. Another Colorado touchdown made it 24-21. Then backup place kicker Mitch Berger hits a 53-yard field goal. 2 seconds remaining. The Buffaloes tie the game 24-all. Detmer passed for 418 yards but threw 5 interceptions.
The Buffaloes would rebound with a resounding win against Kansas State before traveling to Lincoln for the top 10 matchup with the Nebraska Cornhuskers. A complete embarrassment ensued and changes were needed. A switch to sophomore quarterback Cordell Stewart to finish out the season was made, and a 28-0 thrashing of Oklahoma State ensued. With the Big 8 title still up for grabs, Colorado would travel to Kansas to face the 20th-ranked Jayhawks.
Colorado at Kansas, where second place and then some is on the line in the Big 8. Colorado leading 17-10 in the third until Kansas quarterback Chip Hillary airs one out for Dwayne Chandler. 66 yards for the touchdown. Kansas tacks on a 2-point conversion and grabs an 18-17 lead. But Colorado comes back. Fourth quarter when Cordell Stewart gives it to James Hill, who bangs his way for the touchdown with just over 2 minutes to play. Colorado beats Kansas 25-18.
A week later, with their Big 8 title hopes dashed due to Nebraska's victory over Oklahoma, Colorado would easily defeat Iowa State to finish the season 9-1-1. Ranked 10th in the nation, the Buffalo's high-flying offense will have its work cut out for them against the stout Alabama defense. Now, let's bring out our college football analyst Braveheart to get his thoughts on this momentous occasion. Braveheart, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Pork.
Before we look at each individual matchup, let's start with the at-large bids. Did the Bowl Committee make the right choice with Syracuse and Colorado? Do the other 4 teams have room to complain? Namely, I look at Stanford, who had 3 top 25 wins while Colorado ends up with none.
Is there an argument to be made? Sure. But in the end, it all comes down to did you win games on your schedule. Stanford took 3 losses. Colorado took 1, and then they also had a tie. Unfortunately for Stanford, that's the name of the game. I will say that if Stanford had won one of those 3, there was a good chance they would be in this tournament. But that's not the way it happened. And then talking about Syracuse, I think their last game of the season, the 6-point loss to Miami, really impressed the committee. They proved they can play with anyone.
The other glaring thing I see when I look at this is the fact that Colorado is the 7th seed, Nebraska's the 8th. Those two went head-to-head just a little over a month ago, and Nebraska won 52-7. You can't get much more emphatic than that. Does Nebraska have a gripe with the seeding?
You can make the case, but I think the committee is probably looking at final impressions. Now remember, Colorado made the full-time switch to Stewart after the Nebraska game. Coy Detmer played the majority of that game. In the end, Nebraska was definitely hurt by that loss to Iowa State 3 weeks ago. And to make things worse, Iowa State was hammered by Colorado last week, and in the end, that was the final impression the committee was given. I think it's important to be playing your best football at the end of the year because that's what the committee's going to look at. I think it's also worth noting that Miami and Alabama are really 1A and 1B when it comes to top seed, that is. Neither team has an easier road, and you can argue that a semifinal meeting with Notre Dame or Texas A&M is far preferable to having play a Florida State squad which, outside of Miami, has blown the doors off everyone they have played.
Before we break down each game, what are your thoughts on the playoff? Will the winner be the undisputed champion? Is there any path to Michigan claiming the title?
I just don't see it. Those 3 ties are just really hard to overcome. If they defeat Washington convincingly, and maybe one of the 2 lost teams like Nebraska or Syracuse wins it all, then maybe, but it just seems very unlikely. Even in that scenario that Nebraska wins it all, they will have wins over Miami, Notre Dame, or A&M, and a Florida State or an Alabama, all back-to-back. I think that's going through a gauntlet would still make them the unanimous champion.
All right, let's focus in and go game by game. Number 1 Miami versus number 11 Nebraska. A rematch of last year's 22-0 Orange Bowl spectacle that cemented Miami as the national champions. Is this Miami's game to lose? It's essentially a home game for the Hurricanes, and Nebraska hasn't fared well in bowl games recently, losing their last 3, 2 of which were to Miami.
That's a good point. This game is going to be a strength versus strength type of deal. Nebraska averages 328 rushing yards per game with nearly a 6 yard per carry average. Miami's rush defense, though, on the flip side, is one of the best in the nation, allowing 101 yards per game with a yard per carry mark of just under 3. That's the battle to watch. Nebraska is not built to pass the ball. Freshman QB Tommy Frazier cannot carry this team on his right arm. He's just not that guy. Miami is so good offensively that if Nebraska falls behind early, I think you could just call this one. Like, it'll be done. I got Miami in a blowout. They are the best in the country, and they aren't going to overlook this Nebraska team. This is Miami's game to lose.
Okay, let's move on to the Cotton Bowl. Number 4 Texas A&M versus number 5 Notre Dame. Texas A&M played a soft schedule, and the Southwest Conference was pretty terrible this year. But they are undefeated, and they've played a ton of close games. Will that give them an edge, or will Jerome Bettis and his running mate, Reggie Brooks, be too much for the Aggies to handle?
Tell you what, I'm all in on Texas A&M. Greg Hill doesn't get the credit he deserves. The national attention has been on Marshall Faulk, Garrison Hurst, and Jerome Bettis, but Greg Hill quietly put together a monster sophomore campaign. 1,339 yards. No one else in the tournament has been asked to carry that kind of load. He will be the difference maker here.
What about Reggie Brooks on the other side, the less heralded of the 2 stars in South Bend? The same number of yards as Hill, but with 100 less carries.
Look, no one is arguing that Brooks didn't have an amazing season. I'm just saying, if the game is on the line, and you need 2 yards and a 4th down, I'm betting Greg Hill gets it done. Give me Texas A&M in a dogfight here.
Well, okay, how about the Fiesta Bowl? Out in the desert, number 3 Florida State and number 6 Syracuse. This just seems to have the feel of a shootout in the desert. Charlie Ward versus Marvin Graves, dueling it out. I think we can expect to see a lot of points in this one.
People seem to forget that Florida State isn't just an offensive powerhouse. Yes, they are second in the nation in points per game and generate 462 yards per game of total offense. But, on the flip side, they are 14th in scoring defense, giving up 15 points per game and less than 300 yards of total defense. Sure, the Syracuse offense, Marvin Graves, Quandre Ismail, Chris Gindy, are excellent, but this Florida State defense is really good, and while I think Florida State can slow down Syracuse, I am not sure the same can be said for the other side. Now, Charlie Ward had a real turnover problem to start the season, and while he reined it in, he still finished with 17 INTs. And I think for Syracuse to have a chance, they are going to have to force Charlie Ward into mistakes and convert on those opportunities to have a shot.
Finally, let's look at the Sugar Bowl. Number 2 Alabama versus number 10 Colorado. Undefeated Alabama and their suffocating defense, or the high-flying passing attack of Colorado. It seems that Alabama, off their SEC championship game, has to be the favorite here.
Colorado really is the wild card. Let's go down the offensive depth chart. It's sophomore, freshman, sophomore, junior, and it goes on like that. This team is so young, but youth is a double-edged sword. They lack the experience, but if they get on a roll, they have the talent to go all the way. Cordell Stewart, who took over as full-time QB mid-season, has a cannon for an arm, and he might have the best wide receiver duo in the country. Miami fans will balk at this, but I would take Charles Johnson and Michael Westbrook over Lamar Thomas and Horace Copeland in a heartbeat.
Colorado was just in so many close games that had no business being close. I just don't see this ending well for them. Is this a similar situation to Miami? Is this Alabama's game to lose?
I still think that Alabama is the better team. Derek Lasik should run all over the Colorado defense. and Jay Barker will have just enough to put Alabama over the top. I think it'll all be closer than people expect, but in the end, Alabama should pull away with this one.
Well, and there you have it, folks. Let's have your final thoughts as we wrap up our show. Go ahead and tell us who wins the whole thing and who's the playoff MVP.
The clear answer to who I expect to win this playoff is Miami. They are 2-0 against the field, so they have not only been tested, but have had success. I'm predicting a Miami-Florida State rematch in the title game. As for playoff MVP, I think the obvious choice is Gino Torretta. Look, for him to add playoff MVP to his growing trophy case, which I fully believe will also include the Heisman Trophy in a couple of weeks, would be fantastic.
And that's going to do it for us, folks. Thanks for tuning in to the first ever Bowl Coalition Playoff Selection Show. We will be back in 2 weeks with all the action as the tournament gets underway. I'm Porkins, and this has been a PSPN production. Good night. Red 6 standing by. Thanks for sticking around to the end. This is going to be an ongoing series. The next part's going to cover the first round of this tournament. I'm going to use some simulation stuff and some animation stuff to try and give you guys an idea of what this tournament might look like. So the next part should be out here shortly, so please like and subscribe, and you'll be able to catch all the action. Thanks.